All right, everybody, how you doing tonight? This is the unofficial Maple Leafs post-game breakdown. Leafs lose 5-2 to the Kraken tonight in their sixth straight loss, and they haven't done that since 2019. And previous on their homestand where they lost five straight, they haven't done that since 1980. So at this point, we're in record-breaking territory of how bad this Leafs team is. So that's nice to know. Yeah, it's a tough one tonight. There's really not much to talk about. Honestly, I guess, on the unofficial show, it's officially activated that the rebuild needs to happen. So pretty soon, and by pretty soon, I mean within the next couple days, I need to start seeing some assets being sold off, some move. Because this team right now is just floating in space. They got really no direction whatsoever. And I know you have to play hockey till the rest of the year, but I need to see some direction, a little more. I don't know, just direction in terms of where they want to go. Obviously, you're not making this team better, and I've seen reports that the Leafs are in on for like Artemi Panarin, and I hope that's not true. Please don't be trying to add right now and get pieces. Like, yes, there's a lot of injuries, and I do wonder what this team would look like and where they would be in the standings if you didn't have most of those injuries. But that's another conversation. It's happened. Who cares? Yeah, I just don't be trying to add right now. Please just obviously the season isn't working. You don't have the pieces. I think the main difference in this team right now is look, you have your superstars, your first liners, your Matthews, your Nyes, those type of guys. And then you have your fourth liners, right? And in between that, you got your 5 to 6, 7 players that are like your middle players that make they make a big difference in your lineup when you're comparing yourself to other teams. And right now we have the first line and we have an entire team of fourth liners, basically. So the Leafs at this point just don't have the horses necessary, like the players available on their roster to compete with anybody at this point. So, I mean, I think there's a solid 5 to 8 players that need to be moved off this team pretty quickly. And for me personally, look, I know there's a lot of opinions on who they should move on from and change up, but I think like even in a loss like tonight, you saw some guys that were fighting hard, they were playing with a little bit of edge to their game at the end, and I think that you can't punt this season too far down the road in terms of your rebuild and how it's going to look. Like you still need to be competitive next year. And in the following years, just to make sure your stars end up re-signing here. Like you have your Matthews, your Nyes, your Cowens, your Robertsons, guys who do provide offense, who do play with a little bit of edge to them. Your Scott Laughtons too. So if you're gonna move off of guys, I would say keep the guys that play with a little bit of edge to their game and seem that they hate to lose. They have a little bit of passion in their game. Everybody else who just seems like blasé and doesn't really care, those are the guys that have to be shipped out immediately. Your Michellis, Lorentz, just guys like that who are just really not helping this team do anything at all. So I don't know if I to me personally, I'd keep OEL. He had a nice hit tonight that was a little controversial, but I mean, two guys reaching for the puck. One's at a bad angle. It's nothing. It's not intentional. It's not really a talking point in terms of how that went down. It was just an unfortunate play. But keep your OEL, your Carlos, your Scott Laughtons, your Robertsons. Guys that seem to, even in a loss, just play with a little bit of edge and just go hard to the final buzzer. Those guys care. And that's what we want to see as fans. We want to see players that care. Everybody else, just go. Now, let's move on to the Morgan Riley conversation really quickly, okay? Obviously, I've said a lot of things about Riley. It's not working here, as I've said before. And people say, well, how can you move on from him? He's got a no-trade deal until like 2028 or 2029, I think. And I say, I don't really care. Honestly, at this point, I don't care if you force him at gunpoint to take another deal. He's got to go. He's got to be shipped out, move him to somewhere else. I don't care what you get back from him, even if it's nothing. Just get him off this team. I don't want to see him play for this anymore. If he comes back in a year or two, give him the standing O, honorable mention, thanks for playing. But it's just it doesn't work anymore. So just let's just move on from that as quick as possible because I'm tired of seeing guys just blow by him or dangle him and then score. It's just at this point it's awful. Now let's go to Anthony Stolarz quick. Anthony Stolarz tonight, second game back, gives up a goal in the first shot again. I think he did the same thing in Vegas. And at this point, I stayed for a second on the channel and watched some of the post game interviews real quick. And I'm getting tired of the script that these guys follow after every loss. Oh, we played well, we just didn't. No, you didn't play well. You guys played horrible. You were barely in that game from the first minute. So why do you guys come out and say that we played well, we just didn't have it here and there? It's like, for one, Stolarz, you let in the first shot of the game, which is ridiculous. I get it; it can happen sometimes over the course of a season, but it's happening in like every start now. I know it's only two, but it's still bad enough. There was a couple other goals tonight too that I think Stoli should have had for sure. So it's another conversation. But at this point, it's like I'm not sure who made the decision to bring you up after being injured and not playing for 3 months and just shove you in the NHL and say, yeah, figure it out. Because even he said in the post game press conference that it's going to take me a couple games to like get back my rhythm. Well, why are you not doing that in the AHL? Why are you not playing for the Marlies and getting your rhythm back there instead of coming up and just handcuffing this team? Because that's ridiculous. Like, who's making that decision? Is it you? Is it the GM? Like, who is making these calls? This is ridiculous. This is the NHL. I don't care if you don't want to go down there. You got to go down there and figure it out, man. Like, this is ridiculous. So I don't know. That's a whole nother conversation in itself, I guess. But it's a piss off right now when you see how this team is playing, especially when you have two viable goaltenders that are just standing by. Wall's been a little shaky, but still, you got Wall, you got Hildeby. You have enough goaltenders here that you can not play Stolarz. Like, I don't even think I would play him for the rest of the year at this point. There's no point. I would maybe even trade him, honestly. I think having three goaltenders on your roster who on paper are all very good, two of which are questionable, you got to use at least one of them as a trade chip right now, for a draft pick or something. So I would trade. I think one of the guys on the panel said they would trade Wall. I personally, I wouldn't do that. He's your kind of homegrown goaltender for the most part. I wouldn't do that. I think you go with Wall and Hildeby, the Hildebeest, and then ship Stoli out and he can figure it out elsewhere. Because I just think at this point it's not working. He's not fitting the culture of this team. That's my opinion of it. So yeah. Oh, I don't know. Other than that, it just I don't know how much worse this season's gonna get. They played well for the little section there, and they were in a playoff spot, and it was looking good. But at this point, I just look at this and I go, like, how bad can this be? Because right now, it's unfortunate to say, but like you have your good teams and you have your bad teams, and then you have your middle tier teams that are just hanging on, which is the worst place to be because you're not getting any draft picks. You're not in the playoffs. You're nowhere. So the Leafs are in the worst place they can be right now by being a good bad team. Like, I don't know if that makes any sense, but they're a good bad team. And if Nylander comes back and you get Tanev back maybe and a bunch of other guys like your Joshua whatnot, like it's just I don't think it's going to make much of a difference at all at this point. So. And this is the other thing I've said too when it comes to this rebuild or retool. It's you're not building from scratch here. You have some very, very good players on this roster. You're not starting with nobody. You got Matthews, you got Nyes, you have Robertson and Cowan, which are two young guys who are coming up. They're still figuring it out a little bit. Robertson is better than Cowan in my opinion, but again, they're both young, so those are great players that I don't think you should trade for picks because they're already they're just one step out of college basically, or wherever they came from. Like they're close enough to like a new draft pick as it is. So there's no point in trading them because they just have a lot more development to come. So at that point, I would just keep them. But you're starting with enough good players here where I do think that you can kind of with the proper decisions that are being made, you can turn this around in I would say in a year. Now, I don't think they're going to be cup contenders in a year, but I think that there's enough possibility here where you can come back in the next season, barring any horrible injuries, that you're actually competitive and you can make a real run. You can have a good team in playoff contention and do something with that, because like, look, you got Matthews, you got Nylander, you got Nyes, you got Cowan, you got Robertson. Hopefully they keep Lawton on your D. If you get rid of Riley, I think your two main D men who you should keep on this team are Carlo for one and OEL. And McCabe is questionable. I wouldn't mind if he kept him, but those are pretty rock solid defensemen who are big. They can move the puck decently well. And after that, trade everybody, because there's not enough movement on the back end of this team. When it comes to the defensemen, there's just so many times where they just can't keep the puck in or they can't move it up fast enough. Or another option too, if they're being backed up and the other team is coming down the ice on a rush, they seem to just give up way too much ice. Because I'm not sure if they just don't have the size or they just don't have the capability of figuring out where they have to be in those type of situations that are very high pressure and a fast-paced situation like that. So I don't know. I think you need to strip this down pretty much to the bare bones and maybe not bare bones, but like close enough to that where you can add some decent draft picks that are hopefully coming up that are going to be good and then turn this thing around with some good development. So not a lot of positives, but at the same time, I think you have enough talent on this team when they're healthy that you can do something in the next season. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, I'm not going to beat a dead horse. I've already talked about these things 1,000 times, but yeah, it's tough when you have a game like tonight when there's really not much happening to just try to pull something out of this one and talk about it, I guess. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. If you're tuning in, appreciate it. If you're not, you should be. The unofficial breakdown on Instagram, which I put in the end of the video. But yeah, I think it's Vancouver Saturday. Yes, yeah. So that'll be. Well, I mean, Vancouver sucks also, so maybe the Leafs will actually win that game. Who knows? But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, and I will definitely see you after that one. So cheers, good night.